welcome to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and unfortunately, Josh cannot be joining us this week, and so you're going to have to listen to my lovely voice for the next 30 minutes talking to you. 28 minutes with a bit of a song in the middle. I recap this week's worth of pro wrestling. I feel like a bit of a broken record every week when I sit around and I talk about the Bloodline and how they're moving on, but when the main topic you talk about is WWE, that is the storyline, that is the show, the feud that's main eventing SmackDown, that's the feud that's main eventing Raw. It's still holding both world titles as a part of it, holding both tag team titles as a part of it. And so it's really hard to not mention it. I feel like if we weren't talking about the Bloodline, we just plain wouldn't be talking about like 50% of the shows that happen each week. But we got our 6-man tag team match that we thought was going to happen. It has been made official. The three brothers, the Jimmy J and Solo, going up against tag team champions Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, and the brand new, recently returned Matt Riddle. Interesting on this one, just because Matt Riddle seemed to be getting positioned pretty high up before he went off for his rehab break, and so I don't know if the eventual plan with him is to move him into something with Roman, something further up, depending on what's happening with the Bloodline. At the moment, he's the one opposite Solo Sikoa, which, if you've heard this show over the past few weeks, is my confusion or my not exactly knowing where certain things are going. Looks dominant, only has a couple losses. Might even be Cody Rhodes, might be the only one. And I don't know, he's not challenging for titles, he's not really getting in his own feuds. Like the Usos feud with Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn is mostly removed from Roman Reigns. They have done some stuff that has been removed from Roman. Solo has just been there. And, you know, you watch this guy on NXT before he came up, and he does amazing stuff. He puts on amazing matches, and it's just weird to not see him be doing something. And so I think the biggest highlight for me with the Bloodline probably imploding is just seeing what Solo Sikoa ends up doing. Like, I would be a very happy man if we just moved into a Matt Riddle Solo Sikoa feud that lets it all happen. It isn't just tied up with Roman or tied up with the Usos, and just gives Solo himself a little bit of something. They keep hinting at it. Solo almost getting himself into feuds, but I just want them to commit to it. Just push it over the line, give him something, let him run, and show that wider audience what he can do, because at the moment his storytelling is purely Bloodline related. Xavier Woods actually getting a little bit of a push as well. He defeated LA Knight, who's exceedingly hot at the moment. The crowd love LA Knight. It was a roll-up, but, you know, still counts as a win, and he's got a pretty high-profile match on SmackDown again this week. Unfortunate with both Kofi Kingston and Big E off with injury at the moment. He is the only healthy member, I guess. But he's getting a little bit of a showing for himself, which is interesting because he's always the one who doesn't get that. Big E's been world champion, Kofi's been world champion, but nobody is sitting around talking about the Xavier Woods world championship run. To be fair, I don't think anyone's really talking about anyone as a world championship run at the moment that isn't Roman Reigns, but even prior to that, Xavier's been seen as, you know, the guy who takes the fall, the lesser guy, when I think he does a whole lot of the storytelling, whether it's on the mic, whether it's in the matches. It's amazing to see him work. And whether you watch his stuff on Up, Up, Down, Down, or his stuff for video game channels or things like that, he can talk, he can go, and it's good to see him get a little bit of a spotlight here. It sucks that it was only caused by both other New Day members being injured, but, you know, I think it's the definition of grab that brass ring, right? Whatever you're going to do with you, Xavier, just grab it and run. I don't want to skip over the Judgment Day because they're so important, but they're also embroiled with the Bloodline, but they're also embroiled with the LWO. It's kind of this weird system where we had almost no stables for a really long time, and now we've got the 4 people in the Bloodline, we got the 4 people in Judgment Day, we got the 5 people if you count Zelina in the LWO, and we're getting to mix it up. Sometimes it's Solo Sikoa versus Rey Mysterio, sometimes it's Dominic versus, Wild. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of the stables and having people have different affiliations and different groups of people running around. You don't need everybody in a group, but I don't know, it's just really neat. I think it is something that when you look over to New Japan or Japanese wrestling in general, because Stardom do it possibly even harder than New Japan do it, where I think in Stardom now there's only 1 or 2 unaffiliated members, and then everybody else will be affiliated into a unit. And I think maybe overdone in Stardom, everything has to be so unit focused, but there's a middle ground. You know, you look at WWE a few years ago where we have no stables, and then you look at Stardom now where everything is unit focused, and we just got to find that middle ground. It also helps with storylines interweaving, which, if you've heard me chat on this show at all, you know I love a good, well put together wrestling episode that starts and ends with a story and follows it through on the night. And stables really help for that. You know, if somebody gets injured, you can still continue a storyline because it's usually stable v stable. And yeah, whenever I get a hold of universe mode or whatever they want to call it in the WWE games nowadays, stables, immediately you put them together. And yeah, they just work really well. And I think they're a great storytelling element. Even if the Judgment Day are not on the biggest winning streak at the moment, had a bit of a rough time. But hopefully things are looking up, at least for the male members. Rhea Ripley's dominating as much as you'd expect Rhea Ripley to. We had to jump to, what have we got? 8.5 minutes, okay. The mid-card scene at the moment is pretty wild. We know Bronson Reed, Bobby Lashley are doing their thing. Really looking forward to them colliding. I presume that's going to be at Backlash. We got Austin Theory as the champion running around. Miz and Rollins seem to be placing themselves somewhere vaguely around that. On SmackDown, you've got Shinsuke Nakamura coming back. You got Gunther still dominating. Sheamus, Drew. A lot of these upper mid-card or even like former main event guys, former world champs, really getting a bit of a showing, not at the top of the card, which is also something I love. You know, you can't always have the same 2 people at the top of the show. You can't always have the same story being told over and over and over. And so when you branch out like this and you allow Drew McIntyre to come down a little bit and have these banger matches with Gunther and then move into feuds with Sheamus or these other pieces, or maybe the Judgment Day, maybe Finn Balor, who knows? But it's always good to shake things up and to not keep the exact same structure around. And talking about shaking things up, we're getting ourselves a draft, which I think we mentioned last week in passing. But should be interesting as well for these guys who, when we're sitting around talking about like, we've seen this versus this quite a few times, be able to freshen up opponents for guys like Bobby Lashley, for guys like Drew McIntyre, for Sheamus, etc. Luckily, we actually do have that fresh opponent in Bronson Reed for Bobby Lashley right now. So nobody, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, and I don't think anyone is super stale at the moment in terms of the opponents they're going up against. Trying to do a quick skim just to see if I can, prove myself wrong here. I don't think so. I think in general, everybody's on a pretty decent or pretty new feud, yeah. Nobody's doing the same thing. It's not John Cena, Randy Orton all over again, which nobody wants to see, even though it was great storytelling for a lot of the times. It is the same thing over and over, so the draft will just help us with that again. It'll be another refresh, potentially split up some tag teams. Maybe we end up seeing that Montez Ford singles run without needing them to turn on each other or anything like that. Potentially opening up a few pathways for people here and there. Austin Theory actually probably the closest to needing new opponents, maybe switching him over or bringing some new opponents over for him would be a good thing. We'll see what happens in his future. And really it's all just Backlash is kind of, it's like if WrestleMania is the season finale, Backlash is like that epilogue, but nothing ends in wrestling. We're always the next show, the next show, the next show. And so even though we've got that and then we got the draft and everything is always moving. This Cody Rhodes, Brock Lesnar story is moving, the women's division's all moving, NXT, etc. Nobody ever gets a chance to stop. There's never going to be a clean point. And I think everybody, when talking about Triple H coming back and taking over, was expecting that. And it's never going to be an overnight click your fingers, all of a sudden everything's changed. It's always going to be gradual and something that you might not even take notice of off the bat. Sure, he may have rehired a bunch of people. We might have got Damage Control, Braun Strowman coming back, Bray Wyatt messing around. But it wasn't, an instant brand new WWE the second he came back. And people are thinking the draft might be that brand new, boom, instant new era. And again, I don't think so. Eras are not often defined by these big grandiose changes. Eras are defined when you look back at a period of time and you're able to categorize or group these years together by a common thing. We've seen WWE try to define the start of eras and almost always get lambasted for it. Whether it's like the women's evolution and they're like, all right, things are changing now. It doesn't work greatly. Or the authority era, when they were trying to make the crowd or make us as the viewers the authority, and not great fun. But yeah, I ramble, especially with nobody to talk to. So apologies, but thanks for sticking in with me talking for this long. I will give you a reprieve. I am going to go into our entrance theme this week, and even though Josh couldn't make it today, he did leave me with his entrance theme choice. For those who don't know, every song we play, I think bar a couple, have been Josh's choice. That's his responsibility, and for this week, he has selected Carlito's theme.
I spit in the face of people who don't want to be cool. You better be cool.
And you're back dressing Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and NPR. I'm Grady, and Josh isn't here with me this week, so you've still got another, 13 minutes of me talking to you. Let's make it 12. 12 more minutes of me chatting to you about this week in wrestling. I do want to jump over to NXT, quite a highlight of my week. Sometimes we don't give it the the great showing. Sometimes it does get shoved a little bit to the side, but I want to give it a little bit of something here, especially with spring break coming up, where we're getting a lot of cool feuds coming through, a lot of things happening. Brooks and Jensen starting to break up, heading into their mixed match challenge. Dijak, Dragunov, going to be amazing. So yeah, I'll talk about a couple of stuff on NXT on the orange brand, or yellow, I think, on our logo. Gallus, still tag champs, pretty much the same with everything. I feel like Gallus are just going to hold these titles forever until they don't. I know they're relatively fresh, but we'll have to wait and see what ends up happening with them. They're not my favorite team or trio now that they're back to full strength, but they're not bad. I don't find them as exciting as a Creed Brothers or as a Gacy's Group Schism, or as some other tag teams, even Pretty Deadly. I quite enjoy. So they're just a little bit blander for me, but they're not bad. They're not bad. Roxanne Perez still showing her stuff, showing why she deserves to be here. Cora Jade picking up wins, Gigi Dolan getting a showcase. I think we actually got a women's championship booked. Indy Hartwell, Roxanne Perez, and I think Tiffany Stratton, from memory. I don't have that in front of me, as a triple threat for that title. Should be interesting. I don't think Indy's going to lose it so soon. We did posit that Indy might be heading up to the main roster, and maybe that's why she wasn't going to win the title match. Possibly this was a goodbye present. Give her a small amount of a run, and then just give the title back to Roxanne, but it would be extremely weird if that was the way they went. Surely Indy gets to keep the title longer than a month. Wouldn't be disappointed. I'm quite a Roxanne fan. If Tiffany Stratton picked up the title, I'd be a little more disappointed. Could have just given it to her at the pay-per-view, at the big show. But I see bright things in Tiffany's future as well. She is someone that I did discount a lot, and she's just showing me week by week that I shouldn't be discounting her. I should keep my eyes on her and see how she progresses through NXT before heading up to the main roster and ultimately showing us everything she's got. Chase U still being involved with Bron Breakker. Look, anything with Chase U is amazing. We talked at length last week about Bron Breakker being an absolute star, working heel, working face, being able to pull off both of those things before heading up to the main roster. It's Andre Chase versus Bron Breakker at Spring Breakin'. I got a feeling we're going to see Andre Chase broken in half. I'm hoping Duke Hudson doesn't turn on him, because that duo, that group is amazing with what they do, especially with Thea as well. I'm hoping Chase U stays whole, but they might be all going to the hospital, depending on how Bron Breakker ends up leaving them. I do think Bron Breakker is on the verge of moving into that main roster piece, especially with the draft coming up. This could just be one last feud, so he loses the title and then looks strong just before he walks out. Don't quite know. I wouldn't be surprised. I think there's very, very few people who would get called up from NXT at the moment. I think he's a front runner for sure. Dijak probably doesn't want to head up anytime soon. He's just re-establishing himself down here. Ilya Dragunov would be interesting to move up. Apollo Crews again, just re-establishing himself. Grayson Waller, if he's unable to capture the NXT Championship might be one to move up. He's been on quite the losing streak and unable to seal the deal. Although his match with Johnny Gargano doesn't count because it was unsanctioned. Still potentially someone there that could go up and play that upper mid-card type of heel role that we know Grayson's really good at. Would love to see him up there. Wouldn't be surprised. Wesley keeps doing these North American Championship matches. They're great. Happy with it. I'm not as interested in the Drew Gulak, Charlie Dempsey storyline at the moment. It would be... I think it's got potential to build into something that I care about just right now. It isn't super something that I'm, hinging on and wanting to see where it goes. It's something I think that's lost a little bit of steam. They were pulling this, Drew Gulak assembling a crew of people kind of storyline. And I think, it's just lost a little bit of the steam that it had going for it. And so either it's got to pick up that steam again, or we've just got to end up moving on from it. And that's not a knock at Drew or at Charlie Dempsey. I think they are two of the better talents that we have. Drew Gulak is straight up one of the best wrestlers on the roster. There's a reason everybody wants to work with him. There's a reason Daniel Bryan was trying to get him storylines. I just don't know what we can do with the guy. He has been struggling a little bit to find his footing. Main roster, NXT prior to that. Also 205 Live. Just don't quite know what's gonna be the best for Drew Gulak. Maybe Charlie Dempsey versus Drew Gulak. I'd be quite interested in seeing that as a match. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see, as we love to say. Putting a little bit on the women's division. Trish Stratus being Trish Stratus. Gotta love her playing up the heel role. It's not often you see somebody come back, Hall of Famer or even just a legend in general, and playing that heel role. Usually they want to come back, be the hero, do their little one-off story and move on. But what we're getting to see here is someone who looks like they're going to be around for the, not necessarily long term, but let's say medium term. And gonna have a feud with Becky, potentially a feud after that. Don't know how long this one's gonna go or how fast the story will be told. But yeah, it's always refreshing to see somebody come back and stick around, rather than just come back, do one, and move on. Women's tag team division, we did think Rousey Baszler was going to be the ones to be pushing it around, but we are seeing other tag teams come through and show up. It's a division that we not necessarily poop on, but we don't think gets the massive focus on it. It does look like Sonya Deville, Chelsea Green are going to be the first competitors, confronting the champions on SmackDown and defeating Candice LeRae and Mia Yim on Raw. I don't see them taking the titles. If they do go up against Liv and Raquel, I think Liv and Raquel are pretty good champs at the moment. Looking in the division, it probably only is Rousey Baszler that could take them down. Otherwise, I could see them holding on to these titles for quite a little while. Or merging them with the NXT ones, who knows? I'll continue to propose that over and over and over. One less championship for us to worry about. But talking about that, Candice LeRae, Mia Yim haven't been able to get a whole lot of anything going lately. Make their returns, do a little bit of something, but not getting their footing. A couple of Triple H rehires that, although it does look like Candice LeRae is going to be moving into a feud with Nikki Cross, still just not a lot of high-profile wins under their belt since returning both of them, and now losing to, Chelsea Green, Sonya Deville in a tag team match. I don't know, just a couple of people who I know can do better, and who I wish would get a little bit more time, get a little bit more space, and be able to pull off something like that. Well, I think we've come roughly to the end of the show, I think. It's always hard to tell when I do these on my own, based on time codes, but I'm going to call it here at the end of the show. Thank you very much for listening to me rant and jump around with my ADHD jumbled brain the last week of wrestling. If you want to look more of us, you can visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D up, or our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D up. Or if you want to watch any or listen to any of our previous episodes, I think we have 526 of them. They are all up on our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling R&D up. And we will catch you next week, hopefully with Josh, so I have someone to talk to.